Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, we have been following some pretty crazy legislation around the country as we gear up towards election season about some of the states around the country that have come up with all sorts of new and creative ways to keep its citizens disarmed. Now, I thought Oregon had taken the cake, but lo and behold, one of our loyal viewers tipped me off to something that's going on the other side of the country, and it should have all of us alarmed about what is trending in some of these states. So today, let's spend a few minutes and talk about New Jersey, a state working as hard as Oregon to keep its citizens disarmed. Okay, so the piece of legislation we're talking about today, and it is a doozy, is New Jersey Assembly 4769. Now, I want to thank one of our loyal viewers, Michael A., who's back in the Garden State there, and he tipped us off about this issue. And so I want to thank Michael A. for getting me tipped off on this and allowing us to do this video. Now, as I am oftentimes critical of, is that we have pretty much identified where about 100% of our gun problems in this country comes from. As a matter of fact, we did this video right here and also this video where we actually took a look at real Department of Justice data and learned that, shockingly, 88.8% of all gun crimes that are committed in the United States are actually committed by individuals who are unlawfully possessing the firearm at the time that the crime is committed. So, of course, that would mean that roughly 88.8, 90% of our gun legislation, of course, is meant to regulate that group of individuals, right? Oh, au contraire. Actually, no. Consistently, we write gun laws that affect you, the lawful and responsible gun owners, none of which are included in the crime data because none of you folks are actually out committing crime. And so those of us who are critical of these gun control measures will oftentimes say, listen, there is absolutely nothing that's going to, in this bill here, that's going to save lives or makes the community safer. This is really just about affecting lawful and responsible gun owners. Gun control is never about the guns. It's always about the control. And those on the gun grabbing left will oftentimes roll their eyes and say, oh, no, 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 no. You see, that is actually part of our plan here to make the community safer and to save lives. So that's just your conspiracy theory. Well, let's take a look at what New Jersey Assemblyman Joseph Danielson had to say about that, because when he was confronted with that exact issue during an interview, this was his response.
The last thing I want to say to people, and some of my own Democrats have commented to me, this does nothing stop the illegal gun trade or the illegal possessions or criminal content. You're right. This doesn't. It was never supposed to address that. This is addressing the legal, law-abiding, responsible citizens. That's what it's designed to do.
So there you have it. And listen, I got to give it up for Assemblyman Mr. Danielson here, because he is one of the few politicians that at least has been honest about it. But there it is, right from the horse's mouth. This bill was never designed to save lives. It was never designed to make your community safer. It's just designed to regulate lawful and responsible gun owners in New Jersey. Now, what does this piece of legislation do? And by the way, I had mentioned that I felt that Oregon's ballot measure 114 is the worst piece of gun legislation kicking around the country right now. I still believe that. However, New Jersey, you are in a strong silver medal category at this current time. Now, what does this bill do? It does a lot. And if it's anything like the Oregon bill, I'm assuming that it's probably being sold to the folks in New Jersey as it's really not much to it. But don't kid yourself. This does a lot. So, in a nutshell, this bill is a bunch of sour grape response to the United States Supreme Court having the audacity to uphold an individual's Second Amendment rights in New York Pistol and Rifle Association v. Bruin. The state legislature in New Jersey realized that, oh, oh gosh, we have to suddenly change all of our restrictive concealed carry laws. We got to change all of these other laws because that pesky little thing called the Constitution got in the way of our plans to disarm our citizens. And this is how the New Jersey legislature tries to phrase their new licensing requirements. In accordance with the precedent established in the Bruin decision, laws requiring showings of particularized need are no longer legally viable to determine whether a person may carry a handgun in public. The Bruin decision does make clear, however, that the legislature can enact laws to protect our communities from threats to public health, safety, and welfare posed by gun violence, which take into account, as appropriate, the Supreme Court's Second Amendment ruling, while continuing to promote and enhance public safety. Toward that end, this act strengthens the criteria and background investigation requirements that are used to determine whether an applicant is qualified to carry a firearm in New Jersey. And we're going to circle back in a minute here on those new licensing requirements because there is a whole slew of new licensing requirements. Now, one of the other things the bill does is it comes up with all these new places where it doesn't matter what your status is as a concealed carry holder in New Jersey, you cannot take a firearm to any of these locations. These are new gun-free zones, or what they call restricted places. Now, many of them make sense, okay? Schools, jails, courthouses, similar to restrictions to what we have here in Washington State. But there is many other restrictions that this bill would add to residents of New Jersey, including public transportation, actually one of the most dangerous places you can find. Places where constitutional activity is taking place. What the hell is that? So that means churches, that means protests, demonstrations, things like that, where people are exercising their First Amendment right. Okay. Presence of young people or frail individuals. So what exactly that means, I don't know, but I'm sure New Jersey's like any other state. You can find children and elderly at just about every corner. And this is the real kicker, private property, because under this legislation, all private property in New Jersey is now a gun-free zone unless the owner of that property conspicuously posts a sign saying you can bring a firearm onto that property. If the sign's not there, you shall presume that you are not allowed to have a firearm there. Now, in addition to that, this legislation will raise fees by over 1,000%. Now, look at the legislation yourself. I'll put a link for it down below. Grab the calculator, do the math yourself. But yes, they are raising the fees by over 1,000%. Now, I acknowledge that the fees were very antiquated and quite affordable, so that 1,000% markup is not as scary as you may think when you do the math, but there is a significant increase to the expense of having to exercise a constitutional right. Okay, and then this is the real kicker, because even though the Supreme Court basically threw out the proper cause, that is, in New Jersey you had to demonstrate that you had some justifiable reason for wanting to exercise a constitutional right. Yeah, so New Jersey has decided that instead they're going to replace that now with good moral character, and they believe that the Bruin opinion actually authorizes that. I'm not sure what opinion they read, but this is where this New Jersey Assembly is coming from. The exact language that's used, if a person is to be rejected for a license to then exercise a constitutional right, because that's what's occurring here, but the manner in which a person can be rejected under this clause is as follows. A handgun purchase permit or firearms purchaser identification card shall not be issued to any person where the issuance would not be in the interest of the public health, safety, or welfare because the person is found to be lacking the essential character or temperament necessary to be entrusted with a firearm. And what exactly that means is anyone's guess. But if that is not a lesson in subjectivity, I do not know what is. Now, when you scratch even further under this legislation, you see there is a lot more to this. You see, under New Jersey law, you have to have witnesses attest to your overall character, and now these witnesses must attest that you are of good moral character. This legislation, if it becomes law, is going to read, the application shall be signed by the applicant under oath and shall be endorsed by not less than 4 reputable persons who are not related by blood or by law to the applicant and have known the applicant for at least 3 years preceding the date of the application, and who shall certify thereon that the applicant has not engaged in any acts or made any statements that suggest the applicant is likely to engage in conduct other than lawful self-defense that would pose a danger to the applicant or others. The reputable persons also shall provide relevant information supporting the certification, including the nature and extent of their relationship with the applicant and information concerning their knowledge of the applicant's use of drugs or alcohol. Okay, you could try to get a job with the Department of Justice that you would not have this much of a background check being conducted on you. And think about it. Have you ever made any statements about acts in which you may endanger yourself? Does that include people who have dangerous jobs? What about the dude who likes his guns and also likes to go skydiving? Hey, is that a dangerous activity, one he could easily get hurt doing? It most certainly is. Does it make him unfit to possess a firearm? Well, in most normal circumstances, no, but in the state of New Jersey, it may. And this is exactly what's going to be required of law enforcement to determine that you are of good moral character. And let us take a step back here and realize that, if the state of New Jersey is requiring you to establish that you are of good moral character, does that not mean that the state of New Jersey is starting from the presumption that you are of bad moral character, and therefore the burden of proof is upon you to demonstrate your good moral character? This is what the interview process statute would read. The chief police officer or the superintendent, as the case may be, shall interview the applicant and the persons endorsing the application under subsection B of the section and investigate to the extent warranted whether the applicant is likely to engage in conduct that would result in harm to the applicant or others, including, but not limited to, whether the applicant has any history of threats or acts of violence by the applicant directed towards self or others, or any history of use, attempted use, or threatened use of physical force by the applicant against another person, or for other incidents implicating the disqualifying criteria set forth in subsection C, including, but not limited to, determining whether the applicant has been subject to any recent arrests or criminal charges for disqualifying crimes, or has been experiencing any mental health issues such as suicidal ideation or violent impulses, and the applicant's use of drugs or alcohol. Now, I get how some of these criteria may be relevant. However, you are asking people to come up with their own mental health diagnosis of an individual who don't have the credentials to do so. And then we're going to start exploring a person's use of alcohol or drugs. Now, let's just take alcohol alone for a moment. There are a lot of people who use alcohol on a very regular basis, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with it at all. They have no problem, and they are completely functional. It's an appropriate use of alcohol. There are other people out there who don't drink very often, and when they do, get out of the way, okay? They are dangerous, and they do not use alcohol correctly. Who gets to decide, however, what the use of alcohol is that either permits or disallows us possession of a firearm? Oh, well, of course, that would be the state of New Jersey. But even if you go through this entire process, if you have a local official bound and determined, hell-bent on making sure you do not get a license so that you can then exercise a right, they also have the following authority. The chief police officer or the superintendent may require such other information from the applicant or any other person, including but not limited to publicly available statements posted or published online by the applicant, as the chief police officer or superintendent deems reasonably necessary to conduct the review of the application. So they can basically go on a fishing expedition, and even though the law says that they have to issue you this license within 30 days, this law would also then provide that local authority, that chief police officer or superintendent, the ability to add 30 days onto it if they deem that they need more time, thus putting you in a state of perpetuity where you are in a constant state of application, never to be approved. Okay, in addition to all of this good moral character stuff, there are new transfer rules, including that if you're going to transfer between private citizens of the same family, all of those would now have to be done through an FFL, and the transferee, the person receiving the firearm, would of course have to have the privilege of having the license from the state of New Jersey so that they can then go exercise a constitutional right. Oh, but wait, there's more, because in order for you to get the license, yeah, you see, you have to go through some training as well. So you just, go online and take a class, right? Oh, no. There's a lot more to it, because if enacted into legislation, this is how the law would read. Training requirement. The superintendent shall establish training requirements in the lawful and safe handling and storage of firearms, which shall consist of an online course of instruction, in-person classroom instruction, and target training administered by a certified firearm instructor on a firing range approved by the superintendent and on the list of approved ranges published on the state police website. The training shall include, but not be limited to, demonstration of a level of proficiency in the use of a handgun in such a manner as required by the superintendent, and training developed or approved in conjunction with Police Training Commission on justification in the use of deadly force under state law. So yeah, after you pay the fees and get all your 4 non-family members all lined up that can attest to everything you ever did going back to the 2nd grade and your use of alcohol and drugs, you will need to complete a training course. But the training course is going to require a live fire instruction. And of course, that is only going to be taught by instructors that have been approved by state police and on ranges that have been approved by state police. And only those ranges that were already previously on a list by state police can have the chance of getting approved. And you can see what a narrow little funnel they're going to force everyone through in New Jersey in the hopes of keeping you all disarmed. So I get that this piece of legislation may be sold to New Jersey as kind of a straightforward fix to what the Supreme Court did, but don't kid yourself. This bill does a lot more. There is a lot of nefarious intents in place. That's not my opinion. That's your own assembly person's words. What the state of New Jersey is asking of its citizens is a law which will require you to get the state's permission, a hall pass essentially, before you go out and exercise a constitutional right. If this legislation is passed, I'm sure it will be struck down. We're going to put a link below for more information about this legislation. And listen, what can you do? Listen, if you're out in New Jersey, you need to contact your legislators right away and tell them you do not support Assembly 4769. In the meantime, if you have any questions about this or anything else related to your Second Amendment rights, remember, you can always contact us at WashingtonGunLaw.com, or of course you can call us directly at 425-765-0487. Now in the meantime, let's remember, part of being a lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here at Washington Gun Law, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.